Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be going back to a complete set showcase video format, and we're going to be looking at the final set in this particular binder. We've already taken a look at the first three sets in this binder, all in one video. We looked at base set, jungle, and fossil. I'll link that in case anyone is interested in checking that out. So today we will be looking at the fourth set, which is the Japanese set Rocket Gang, which is the equivalent of the English Team Rocket set. This is obviously the fourth official expansion for the Pokemon trading card game, and this set, Rocket Gang specifically, was released in Japan on November 21st of 1997. Now, the Japanese side, which we'll be looking through today, obviously, has 65 total cards in the set, compared to 83 on the English side. And of course, we'll kind of highlight the differences as we get to them while we flip through the set. And the other thing that's worth noting before we get started is the Rocket Gang booster packs had guaranteed holos in every single pack. Now, I'm sure many of you are familiar with this already, but just for anyone who may not be, the theme of the Rocket Gang and Team Rocket sets was dark Pokemon. Now, not dark type Pokemon. Those were obviously introduced later on during the Neo era. These are specifically just dark variants of the specific Pokemon. And what that is kind of shown as in the illustrations is just a little bit more of an edgier or like tougher feel to some of the Pokemon. So for example, Dark Arbok is looking like it's in a striking pose. Dark Charizard has its back turned to you with like an angry look on its face, like it's ready to fight. So you'll kind of see that kind of tougher, edgier feel in a lot of the illustrations throughout this set. Now, for the holos, every single Pokemon holo is a dark variant of the Pokemon. And then obviously there's holos that are not Pokemon. There's 2 trainers and 1 energy, but all the Pokemon are dark. So obviously, Dark Alakazam, Dark Arbok, Dark Blastoise, and so on throughout. I'll try not to pull out a ton of cards because I tend to ramble, but we'll highlight the Blastoise just because I think this one personally is probably my favorite one of the set. I think the background really does a great job of making the Blastoise pop because it looks like there's like water or like pressure like coming out like this from behind him. Again, obviously maybe battle ready pose. But yeah, I think this card is really, really awesome. And again, it is kind of cool to see, artists take on these Pokemon with a little bit more of like an angstier feel to them. So first set of pages we have here, and then we'll flip to the next side and you'll see again the holos for Pokemon be rounded out by dark variants of all. You can also see the shadow of a Rocket Grunt appearing like they're standing in front of the Dark Magneton. And then also, I don't know if you can see that, but there's also a Team Rocket Grunt behind the Dark Slowbro as well. So really cool detail on those, kind of weaving in, the Team Rocket Grunts beyond the notable Team Rocket members. Obviously, you'll see Here Comes Team Rocket, this holo featuring the iconic trio of Jesse, James, and Meowth. You'll see Giovanni in a non-holo card, so kind of cool to see, the lower ranking Team Rocket members getting some cameos throughout the cards. But like I said, we're going to 2 trainer holos. Here Comes Team Rocket, Rocket's Sneak Attack, and then the Holo Energy, which is the Rainbow Energy, which I actually think is super cool. I'll say for an energy card. I feel like I've come to appreciate the energy cards a lot more as I've gotten older, but yeah, really cool there. And here is kind of where we'll see our first difference between the English and Japanese side of the hobby. So similar to the call out that was made for jungle and fossil, the English side of the hobby released a non-holo variant for every single holo rare. So every card from Dark Alakazam all the way to the Rainbow Energy also had a non-holo variant on the English side, whereas the Japanese side obviously only had the holo version. So that's where you'll see the bulk of the discrepancy in terms of the set number or the total cards in the set between the 2 releases. So yeah, we're starting here. Then we go into the uncommons. Again, all of the uncommon cards on the Japanese side feature dark Pokemon as well. I know this one is a fan favorite with Charmeleon kind of having the fire spin coming from its tail. You'll have all of the evolutions. You'll have Vaporeon on the next page, but I always thought of the three at least. Jolteon's was the coolest. And then one card that I always remember thinking was super cool as a kid is the Dark Golduck, using Hyper Beam and kind of having the waves like spreading out as the force is coming from his attack, which is pretty cool. And then we'll flip on and you'll continue to see dark Pokemon that were uncommons. And this is where there's another interesting difference that I actually only found out about recently between the English and the Japanese releases. So I obviously collect the Japanese cards, but I order them in the English set order mainly because I enjoy having, the hollows front loaded together all at the front. That's just the way that the English is done. It's done by rarity and then alphabetically. So you'll have your hollow rares in alphabetical order, your uncommons in alphabetical order, and then your commons in alphabetical order. So typically, you'll start here for the uncommons on the Japanese side. But you'll probably be wondering, well, then why are Magikarp and Porygon here if we're starting the commons alphabetically when Abra should be first, obviously A. So interestingly, on the English side, Magikarp and Porygon are uncommon cards, whereas on the Japanese side, if you see here, they are just common cards. So I thought that was really interesting. I feel like there are obviously instances where certain cards are released either in one set in English and a different in Japanese, or they're distributed in different methods, but I don't think I've ever been familiar with an instance of where the rarity has changed. So yeah, I thought that was really unique. Definitely wanted to flag that. But that is why you see them coming at the beginning of the common section when they are common cards, even though they're not in alphabetical order, just because on the English side, these two are uncommon. But then you'll obviously continue into the uncommons. You have Dark Raticate here. This is the only card that is of the common rarity that was designated to be a dark Pokemon. And the other thing worth noting here is the Grimer. This actually is one of the banned artworks for the global release. So basically what that means is they had to alter the artwork prior to the global release because the artwork in the Japanese release specifically was deemed as inappropriate. You may be able to tell already, or you may know already, but in case you don't, the Grimer, the way the eyeballs are positioned, it looks like the Grimer is trying to look up this person's skirt. So the illustration was slightly altered. Again, it was a very, very, very minor change. Some banned cards and re-releases that you'll see in later sets have like completely different artwork. But this one, the only difference is on the English release, you'll have the eyes for Grimer basically facing you, rather than looking upward to what seems like it's looking up the person's skirt. And again, there are quite a few instances of banned cards and altered artwork and totally different artwork, especially in the vintage era. So definitely something I enjoy highlighting, and that's kind of one of the earlier instances of that happening there. And then we'll continue to go through the common cards. Again, a lot of iconic cards that I remember pulling a lot. I remember pulling the Mankey a lot, the Magnemite a lot, the Slowpoke, which I feel like a lot of people really like this one because he's almost like lackadaisical, sleeping while fishing. And then I've also always really liked this Oddish card because there's a cute little frog right here. Again, another instance, I called this out in a previous video, but another instance of like a non-Pokemon in the Pokemon world, which I thought was really interesting. And then obviously we'll end the common Pokemon and we'll move in through the trainer cards. And then we will flip to the back here and you will see the full heal energy and the potion energy. These basically for the trading card game, it was, you could use a full heal and you could also slap a free colorless energy on a Pokemon, and the same for the potion. You get the potion effect and you can also put a colorless energy on a Pokemon as well for free. So that is where the set ends on the Japanese side. If you are familiar with the English side, the Team Rocket English release, you may be wondering where a certain card is, or notice that a card is missing. And that card would be the Dark Raichu card. So Dark Raichu on the English side was actually released as a secret rare, the first ever secret rare for the Pokemon trading card game. It was numbered 83 out of 82 and was obviously just pullable from a standard English Team Rocket pack. And if you are good with the set symbols, you'll notice here that Dark Raichu was actually released in Japanese during the Neo era. So a completely different set and a completely different era between the two different releases. And what makes this one honestly really, really interesting and really unique is that the Dark Raichu is one of the very few instances where the card was actually released on the English side first. So the English Team Rocket set came out a few months before the Neo set that released the Dark Raichu in Japan. So a very, very rare occurrence where a card is featured on the English side before being released in Japan, but definitely very cool and very noteworthy at that. And obviously, we'll highlight this card when we get to the Neo era, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but definitely thought that was worth sharing because, again, obviously 99.999% of cards are featured on the Japanese side first, and this is one of the few and was the first that actually came out on the English side first. But with that brings us to the end of the Team Rocket English or the Japanese Rocket Gang set. The goal of these videos is obviously to showcase the complete set. Definitely want to appreciate the artwork, but also to share information about differences of releases, any nuances between the cards on different sides of the hobby. So hopefully you found this video to be informative. Maybe you learned something. Let me know what your favorite card is from this set in the comments down below. Like I mentioned, I think, if we're talking English side, Dark Raichu is definitely my favorite, but that doesn't apply here. So my favorite would definitely be the Blastoise for Japanese Rocket Gang. And of course, as always, thank you so much for checking out the video. Really appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one.